Hello fellow mutants, welcome back to another video. In this video we're going to talk about um how Luke Skywalker's Jedi Academy will make a great Star Wars game setting. And I'm pretty sure that kind of already happened in Jedi Outcast, but so I'm interested in seeing what they mean in this article. So let's give this a read, shall we? So in this article it says, the Star Wars sequel trilogy introduces fans to Luke Skywalker's Jedi Academy. Well, I guess if you mean like in Disney canon, then yeah, sure, okay. And then quickly bring it down. Many fans were excited to see just what Luke had been up to since the end of the original trilogy, and some believed that he would have created a brand new Jedi Order between the fall of the Empire and Rise of the First Order, which I feel like is indicated in the sequels that he did, and he kind of, you can see that he's like somewhat. You can see the stepping stones in a way when he was training Grogu in, well, I guess in Book of Boba. Even though I don't agree with how they ended things for Grogu's Jedi training, but still, you can't argue saying that you see the stepping stones essentially of Luke starting the Jedi Academy in Book of Boba. Anywho, I'm gonna shut up and read. While he did try to build something new, his mission ultimately failed as Ben Solo burnt much of it to the ground before the events of The Force Awakens. Star Wars has slowly revealed more about Luke's academy in projects like the Book of Boba, which I just mentioned. They must be reading my mind. But fans have yet to see it in the full glory. While a TV show or a movie may explore this time period sometime, a video game could be a better medium. The rise and fall of Luke Skywalker's Academy is a major part of the Star Wars story, and fans want to be able to just see just what went down. A lot of fans want to better understand just how Luke Skywalker went from the hopeful nature in Return of the Jedi to a man that has forsaken the Force in The Last Jedi. And a video game could depict those events better than a series or a movie. Star Wars barely shown, and I have to agree, even though I might not be a huge fan of the sequels, I am admittedly interested in how this version of Luke Skywalker, the Disney version of Luke Skywalker came, what did he do? How did he, exactly, reboot the Jedi Order? We know that Luke and Lando went to Exegol. I feel like that's really the only thing that we got for Luke Skywalker since Disney took over. That and his 5-second cameo in Battlefront 2. Correct me if I'm wrong, but those two things are the only times that we've seen Luke Skywalker really doing anything after the original trilogy. So let's keep going. And like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, because I will fully admit I'm wrong if I'm wrong. So, Star Wars has barely shown fans Luke's academy, and that is true. Luke Skywalker's Jedi Academy rose and fell in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. After the Battle of Endor, Luke wanted to usher in a new age of the Force users, and he chose his sister Leia Organa as his first student. Right, I forgot that they sold that part in Rise of Palpatine. They trained together for a time, but Leia would eventually end her training after witnessing a vision that foresaw the death of her future son Ben Solo. So, Luke decided to go out across the galaxy to learn more about the original Jedi Order and construct a brand new Jedi temple on Ossus instead. One of Luke's first students at his temple of Ossus was Grogu, as seen during the Book of Boba Fett. Luke trained Grogu in the ways of the Force, and Grogu ultimately chose to leave the Jedi Order behind and return to Din Djarin instead. Ahsoka Tano also bore witness to this new school for Force users, but fans did not know whether she stuck around after Grogu's departure. Ben Solo was one of the first major students at Luke's new academy. After learning that Snoke was trying to sway him to the dark side, Leia sent Ben off with Luke to learn the light side of the Force. Luke training Ben alongside a new set of students. He continued expanding the school as Ben and his classmates grew older. For everything that he built would soon be under threat as growing darkness loomed inside Ben's mind. Ben eventually recruited the other students to help him set the temple ablaze and a powerful lightning storm. He fled to the protection of Snoke and left Luke in the rubble. Luke eventually emerged and watched as his temple burned to the ground while his light-sided pupils lay dead. He retreated to Act 2 and put himself in exile by cutting off from his connection to the Force. So the failure would lead him to believe that the Jedi legacy was one of failure, and Ben would go on to become the infamous Kylo Ren, while the galaxy fell into disarray once again. The rise and fall of the Academy is an important part of Star Wars, at least in the Disney version. The rise and fall of Luke's Academy is a very important part of the Star Wars lore, but most of it has not been known since. Let me reread that. Sorry, I can't read for some reason today. The rise and fall of Luke's Academy is a very important part of Star Wars lore, but most of it has been shown off in visual media yet. Hasn't been shown off in visual media yet. Fans got their first look at the Jedi Academy during the sequel trilogy, but they only saw how it fell. The Book of Boba Fett gave viewers a better look at the beginning of the temple but the show did not linger on it for very long. The only other tidbits that fans had gotten are from the comic books and mentions in various novels, and that needs to be rectified. And I agree. Star Wars fans have seen the beginning and the end of the Jedi Temple, and they have to read about the middle chapter. While a show or movie may explain the middle chapter, perhaps a video game would be the better option. Video games can tell a much larger story than a movie can, and they allow fans to actually be part of it. Gamers could take control of Luke Skywalker or create one of their Padawans, and then witness the temple at the heist before it fall. They could then watch as Ben Solo tears it from the ground, and maybe even be given the option to join him in the mission. There are not many Star Wars titles that explore the events between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. Star Wars Battlefront 2 and Star Wars Squadrons show the various parts of this period from the perspective of soldiers. But there has not been an exploration of the Force during this time. While there are many Star Wars games that follow Force users, there are none that follow Luke's failed attempt at creating a new brand. I apparently can't read this for some reason. Let me start. Again, sorry. Well, there are many Star Wars games that follow Force users. There are none that follow Luke Skywalker's failed attempt at creating a brand new Jedi Order. Without many interesting events occurs, fans deserve to see this in some type of format, and video game could be the perfect medium to tell the story. If you guys want to see, like, read this without seeing me, like, be choppy as fuck, just pay attention to the comment section, because I will have this in the pinned comments down below. But I did enjoy this article, because I have to agree that even though I'm not a huge fan of the sequel trilogy, it did give us the thing of, well, Luke Skywalker did boot up a Jedi Order, I reboot the Jedi Order, and he essentially was going to, like, he eventually failed at it, and because his nephew turned to the dark side, so I think, like, I have to agree that we as fans deserve to see more of how Luke went about the Jedi Order, because we've seen Luke adopt the mindset of him, like, of, like, the Jedi of the Clone Wars, but we haven't seen Luke yet adopt the same mindset as he did in, like, the Legends, where having attachments is okay. Sometimes having the attachments can be our strength, and it felt off that Luke kind of said to Grogu that he can either have the attachment to Mando or be a Jedi. You can't have both. So I'm hoping to see Luke adopt that, like, remember or realize that, you know what, the reason why I, like, I'm still alive is because my attachments in the war against the Empire. Attachments are okay. They can be our strength. Sure, it can also be our weakness, but it can be our strength. We shouldn't. And if I cast out attachments, then I'm dooming myself like the Jedi did of old. So I'll be interested in seeing that mindset that Luke has. I'm hoping he will adopt that, because if he doesn't, then that will be like, dude, why? That's like part of the reason why Luke Skywalker became, like, is one of my favorite characters, my favorite Jedi. It's why I cosplay as Luke Skywalker. Like, I do have a literal costume of Luke Skywalker of Return of the Jedi. And I feel like they're gonna, like, if they don't explore this, that'll be a wasted opportunity. Granted that I recently been saying that I want to see more content of Luke, like, of Star Wars, I mean, that goes into, like, the sequel trilogy, like, what happens after the sequel trilogy, and beyond that. And I'm still holding on to that position, but I'm also holding on to the position that if they're going to go back in time and tell stories, I feel like this is, like, one of those few stories that they should tell. Is how did Luke Skywalker, like, really, how did Luke Skywalker run the Jedi Order? And if they want to show us how, like, Ben Solo turned to the dark side, sure, go ahead. But we need that story of how did Luke essentially boot up the Jedi Order. I also have, like, the 5 seconds that we got in Book of Boba. Us fans, I agree, deserves it. I want to see it. That's actually one of the few stories that I would very most like to see if we're going back in time. If we don't get that, then I'm hoping, like, after Endor or after Ahsoka, essentially. Well, I think Ahsoka's, like, kind of, like, pushing it forward, the story. But my point is, I want to see stories in the future that like adds more weight to the sequels. Because as a person like me who dislikes the sequels, or I shouldn't say dislike, because there are moments in the sequels that I did enjoy. There are moments in the sequels that, like, I did enjoy, but as a whole, I feel like the sequels were a hot mess. And I want content in the sequel trilogy era, preferably shortly after, where it gives the sequels more weight. Otherwise, like, what's the point of even buying Star Wars or Lucasfilm if they're not going to like push on in the story of Star Wars? Like, right now I feel like we're in this, where like in terms of like creating new stories and new timelines, we're at a standstill. We're just at a standstill, really. I mean, sure, Andor is necessary. Sure, I'll give them that. It's a good story, I think. Sure, we're going to get the Bad Batch, which is not exactly the best Star Wars show. It's not the worst either. But I just want stories that will push the Star Wars story further. As in, mostly in like the sequel trilogy era. And there's like a few stories like this article that I agree that should be told if we're going to go back in time. Few stories. Few. That's just me. What are you guys thinking about this article? I've been talking in you guys' ears for long enough. What do you guys think? Let me know in this comment section down below. Love you guys. Have a wonderful day. Be kind to one another. And may the force be with us all. Later, musings.